Welcome to Snow Bros, Sunday, February 1st. Meteorologist Matt Makins here. Deep cold across the south, a number of records. We're also going to be chatting about our latest storm system passing on out and another system already developing in its wake over the southeast. That system develops, and you'll see the timeline in this video, plus what that means across snowfall total fields from the southeast back toward New England and the northeast. Additional snow is on the way. It's been quite an active winter. Active today in terms of cold. Active down throughout Florida, namely. We have single digits and teens, some 20s down throughout Florida, not to take away from the record cold that's around the Carolinas. Just a couple of examples here. Some of the lows that we had this morning around Charlotte, all the way down toward Orlando, were record cold for today's date, and also in some cases for the month in total for February. Daytona Beach is one example at 23 degrees, I believe, was the low this morning. That set the daily record low and the coldest February temperature ever recorded there in Daytona. So obviously cold. That cold is going to be compounded for tonight across the northeast and eastern Canada. Very, very cold as we go toward Monday morning in this area on the backside of our low. We watched this system. We tracked it for you all week long. Brian Shields has been bringing you the latest here yesterday, updating that today. Storm system continues to move over mostly the open Atlantic. However, there's going to be some effects here for the Maritimes. Then behind this, we've got another system to watch develop later this week. Going to turn the terrain off. You can see the colors on the map. The blue is a snowfall. Rain is in greens and yellows as well as reds. And any icing is going to be in pinks. So let's walk through this together. As we go from today, we have the big low, okay, out over the ocean. It's going to be moving and impacting mostly the Maritimes. So Nova Scotia today and Newfoundland for today, but not to take away from the snowfall through the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. There will be some pockets of very heavy snow, especially lake effect or lake enhanced snowfall later today into tomorrow around the Great Lakes. But let's skip ahead and we'll go toward a relatively quiet start to the week, but watch what happens Tuesday morning. Seeing rain forming from Houston to Dallas up toward Nashville, and north of Nashville we have some snow, and watch as it gets heavier. This is Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern. Nashville down toward Houston and Dallas, showers, perhaps some thunderstorms. To the north, you look at, say, Louisville, Kentucky, and northward, we have snowfall, and it gets heavier as we get into Tuesday night. Thunderstorms, rain showers, pass over Nashville, may briefly turn into some snowfall depending on the timing if it slows down a little bit. And as we go into early Wednesday morning, a little bit of icing is going to be possible in Kentucky and Tennessee. Meanwhile, snow has arrived in D.C., close to New York. Rainfall from Charlotte to Atlanta down toward Houston. That's Wednesday in the morning. This is the drive time or to work or school for Wednesday. And we have the showers, the thunderstorms across the southeast. Ice potentially from Washington, D.C. down toward Nashville, and snow to the north. Pockets of heavier snowfall around New York and Boston. As we go beyond this time frame, we're scooting that system on out with another push, kind of a third system we're tracking today in today's video that will push even heavier snowfall toward the Great Lakes and back through the northeast. Another dose possible in D.C. and New York, Cleveland, Toronto, and Ottawa as we get into Friday. So it's really not just today's system we're tracking the one forming Tuesday, and then the other one that will impact us into next weekend. So kind of a threefold impactor, if you will, as we go throughout this video. I'm going to zoom in here to the eastern Canada areas. We have the low pressure area this morning down to the south, heavy snowfall throughout Nova Scotia, especially in Halifax and Sydney, and then in New Brunswick here, we've obviously got some snowfall, lighter stuff, but as you go out toward Newfoundland, that's where we're going to see the heavier snowfall kick in late Sunday evening into Monday morning, and it pushes up to the north. So say by tonight, tomorrow morning, headed off to work or school, Gander to St. John's has the heaviest snowfall, perhaps St. Anthony at times as well. But you move much to the north or west and you get away from the real snow impactor of the system, but it's a cold impactor there. As we skip forward in time, things get a little bit quieter here for eastern Canada. So from the storm for today, we're looking at another, say 20 to 40 centimeters in large part from Nova Scotia, from Halifax to Sydney, out toward sections of Newfoundland. This is one model projection giving St. John's a huge bullseye of snowfall. That's probably too much there, but this model says 63 centimeters, 26 for Gander. As you look at the potential there, it's going to be some heavy snowfall. So let us know if you're in St. John's or that corner of Newfoundland how much snow you end up with. Potential is there for more than 50 centimeters. Okay, let's go to focus on the next storm system, okay? So we have the southeastern U.S. We're a little bit quieter. Yes, we're cold this morning, but we're quieter relatively speaking. We'll get some snow trying to melt off over a couple of days, but don't expect much recovery anytime soon, because as we hit that Tuesday time frame, that's when the next storm begins to form. So here we are, Tuesday 7 in the morning, Tuesday at 1 p.m. So lunch hour, showers, thunderstorms, Little Rock, Memphis, down to Jackson, Monroe, Columbia, Nashville, and Jackson. Up to Owensboro, that's where the snow rain changeover is going to be. Somewhere between I-40 and I-64, likely to be snowfall in Louisville, Lexington, toward Charleston. That's Tuesday midday. Now Tuesday evening, heavier snowfall from Lexington to Charleston along 64 and Lexington southward along 75 until you get to about the state line. Once you move into Tennessee, around Knoxville down to Dalton, still in Nashville, approaching Johnson City and Nashville, that's going to be the chance for some rainfall. And snowfall, Charleston, Morgantown out closer to Baltimore as we get into Wednesday overnight. So this is going to be 1 a.m. on Wednesday. We have snow returning to the D.C. area, Fredericksburg, Richmond, Baltimore, Norfolk, chance for that. A little bit of icing possible north of Winston-Salem up close to Roanoke. Otherwise rainfall, cold, chilly rainfall down across the southeast. Here comes a bit of icing Wednesday morning, drive to work. Roanoke, Charleston, south of Lexington, north of Knoxville, stretching toward Nashville, Columbia, and Jackson. This icing appears to be light at this time, but stay with us in future updates. If you're subscribed, we'll get you the latest on this, because I know we're still dealing with the last ice storm, especially in Nashville. A lot of cleanup, power outages continue, and now we're hearing the chance for more ice. That probably heightens your alert level, right? Well, we'll keep you posted on what this means for you, but right now the icing does not appear to be significant like that last event. There could be some snowfall early in the morning, though, as that system wraps up. Mostly cold rain here across the southeast as we get into Wednesday afternoon, and will continue as we go into Thursday. Just leftover pockets of rain or snow, depending on your exact location. But some of the possible snowfall totals coming in with this midweek system across the south and the southeast. Charleston to Roanoke, up to Morgantown, down to about Johnson City. There's a bullseye right in here that could, in theory, reach more than 6 inches. Some of these coastal areas here from, say, around Savannah on up toward Wilmington and wrapping up toward Norfolk, if you're right along those coastal areas, sure, a couple to a few more inches is going to be possible in this modeling, right around 4, 5, 6, 7s, depending on the modeling that you look at. But we'll continue to track these numbers, far from being set in stone. Just note that the potential for additional snow and perhaps some ice is on the way for the south and the southeast later this week. Again, most of the modeling consensus, if you blend everything together, is a couple to a few inches. Not as significant as the last event, or the last two events, I should say, but something to track as we head toward that midweek. Now, for the New England areas, we still have storm number 1, the low passing by. We'll get a little bit quieter today. Into tonight, it's going to be very cold from Boston to Hartford up into Canada. Ottawa and Montreal, certainly very cold for tonight. As we look toward that midweek system, here comes some snowfall appearing at times out of the Great Lakes region, stretching along I-90, I-80, and I-70, moving in from the west. Mostly light to moderate pockets unless you're closer to the lakes, and they'll have some lake effect, some snowfall there, like for Syracuse, for one example. As we get into Wednesday early in the morning, watch as we get some pockets of heavier snowfall moving from storm number 2 in this case, from D.C. to Philly, New York, up to Hartford, Providence, the Cape, and Boston. Little pockets, some heavier snowfall, even possible around Augusta, there in down East Maine. St. John, Yarmouth, Halifax, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, additional pockets of snowfall. Most of what I've shown you in the series throughout this work week is just pockets or little occasional bursts, temporary bursts of snowfall, but watch what happens into the weekend. Remember that third system? The one that was approaching the Great Lakes with heavier snowfall? Well, here it comes. Here it comes by Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Comes out of Canada, heavier snowfall blankets, a bigger region this time. Most of the Northeast, most of New England, all the way through New Brunswick and the Maritimes. Again, getting some heavier snowfall Friday into the weekend. This is Saturday morning at 1 o'clock, Saturday midday, Saturday afternoon, into Sunday morning. You get the trend here, tracking several chances for snow this week, but for the Northeast, and the Great Lakes region for that matter, the biggest impact appears to be late this week into next weekend. Totals on that system, in some of the modeling we have 1s, 2s, 3s up to 4s for Syracuse, Buffalo, D.C. at 2, 2 in Baltimore, Philly at nearly 2, about 1.5 inches, Hartford 1, Providence 1, just over 1 inch in Boston. That's in modeling simulation 1. Here's the American modeling, and you can see the big jump between the European counterpart with a little bit of snowfall to the GFS. The American product, a lot more snowfall here in the lake effect region. Syracuse closer to 10, Montreal at 30 centimeters, Boston, Providence, Hartford, anywhere from 1 up to 5 inches in this particular modeling. But if you blend a whole ton of models in together, this is a general rule of thumb for right now. Blend a bunch together, see what the probabilities are, and that is giving us about 1 to 3. From Boston down through New York, Philly, into DC and Baltimore. Long Island, chance for snowfall. The Cape certainly has a chance. And in fact, if you look at the blended modeling, some of the yellow shades that cover areas pretty much everyone to the east of Falmouth or so, we've got a chance for at least 6 inches there. But we've got a long way to go before we hit this system. We've got a full week's worth. So yes, there's additional snow on the way. At this time, nothing appears to be overly heavy or to compete with the past couple of storm systems that we've had. But we'll keep track on it, that's for sure. So tracking the next system developing this week, that's the midweek one, Tuesday into Wednesday. Then there's the one coming from the Great Lakes that'll approach by late week. So really I should have written tracking the next 2 systems as we did in this video. We'll pinpoint the deepest snow, we'll get those the high resolution data, get as close and throw as many locations on the map as we can, as we did with the last storm system. So look for those maps in future videos. And again, if you're subscribed, you'll get the alert as soon as we issue those. Significant cold snap by mid-February. What's this one about? You're going to hear more social media hype about this one, and there's some justification to that hype. Once we hit mid-February and late, you're going to hear terms like polar vortex and sudden stratospheric warming. All of these things depending on the level of weather buffness that you bring. But it does look like we have odds that are increasing toward another significant cold snap in mid-February. And with that, we can also increase the chance of some of these kind of class 3 storms, type 3 storms, where it may be like an Alberta clipper, it grabs some moisture out of the Gulf, combines, and can give quite a bit of wintry mix, kind of a mess from the southeast back through the northeast, New England, mid-Atlantic, those kind of locations. So that's something we'll be tracking for you. And more detail, obviously, as we get closer, but know that you're going to hear some social media buzz about what happens toward mid-February. We're tracking it all for you without the hype. Brian Shields and I will be here watching the data, passing along anything relevant to you as we go throughout the week. Hope you have a great Sunday.